Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser.
I'm Johnny B.
And I'm Stuart from Great Escape Games.
But together we are
Modeling for
Advantage.
All right, guys, we've got a few early adopters here. We've got Alid from out Cardiff way. Evening, painting the British Airborne, source from Mrs. K, while deciding if my dead man's hand needs a saloon and a barber shop from the family as a Christmas gift. Do you do a barber shop? Is that the new small building?
Yeah,
Nice.
it's just the generic. It's the title we gave it for a laugh, really.
Yeah. It's the same dimensions as the other building, but the doors are different. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's got a different header board, different front, different back.
Yeah,
load of
and
different
you
doors.
mix
And
and match them together.
It's got a sleepy cat as well.
Sleepy cat, Lazy Park Pen. Always nice to hear what Gaffhead Stuart has upcoming. We had this conversation where, come on, you Reds. 28 mil says, having a break from painting winter Germans for bolt action, I've decided to paint up some Middle Earth orcs for a change. I understand Great Escape Games have quite a comprehensive winter range of Germans in metal.
I believe so.
I've got some in a box back here. I'm going to do Stalingrad at some point. So, folks, it has been a little while, as I said, on the... Oh, Owen Glendower is here, leading the rebellion. Look at that. Good evening, folks. We've been away for a couple of weeks. I'd had a little bit of surgery. I'm fine. It was nothing major, but it did. There's done some strong drugs for a while. Wasn't a great time to be doing a live stream. But we're back. And what have we been up to in the meantime? I had Wooly down at the weekend, and we reviewed a couple of the Team Yankee new boxes, which you'll see. We haven't yet got to it, but there is a new Achtung Panzer starter force. I'm not that interested in the fact that it's the Waffle SS, but what I am interested in is it's got new unit cards in it, which we haven't seen for Germans, and a much-needed armoured car. Speaking of Team Yankee, Wooly's been making up some MDF buildings, but actually, these ones look very Team Yankee. But in the set that I was given, this one I feel looks very Stalingrad to me.
Oh wow!
I think, and I've got a half-finished Stalingrad board from years ago. So it's in that you see something and it reminds you of an incomplete project. I'm probably going to go back to that. And the last thing to say is, chap got in touch with me on the email. He's written himself a new set of War Games rules, and I said, it sounds interesting. Send us a copy. So he has. Bronze shield, silver coin. I'm going to have a look at this, and John and I might have a bit of... We were talking about getting your... this screen's too narrow. I can't hold it in place and see.
Yeah.
You painted up some Spartans, didn't you, John?
Yeah, my weird menagerie, my collection. Yeah, there was some Spartans.
This is
so I had a little
Ancients Warband fighting with about 10 figures. It feels a lot like a Blue Book kind of rule set in so far as it's not got like 400 pages with only 10 pages of rules hidden among a load of other text and things like that. It looks good. 10 figures aside, we already got, and I do like myself a bit of Skirmish Ancient, so we're going to give it a crack, and then we'll do a review of the rules for you, I think. So that's that.
That's not why we're here.
Just assembled my Aces and Eights saloon tonight and backed the Mounted Gunfighter. Look at that, see, Stuart.
Nice.
We're providing that little aid memoir for everyone, saying that Stuart has got a Kickstarter going on. So, Stuart, there is a slim chance that there are people watching the show tonight or afterwards that don't actually know who you are. So, do you want to just introduce yourself and your sofa?
Yes, I'm at Great Escape Games HQ here in Cardiff, actually. I'm one of the directors of Great Escape Games. We started 20 years ago now, when I decided I didn't want a real job, and after being made redundant, and started doing this instead. And probably what we're best known for is Dead Man's Hand, which is it's all about skirmish wargaming in the Old West. It's very cinematic, and currently we're pushing our Kickstarter for plastic mounted gunfighters. in 28mm, which are really cool.
Very nice. And
Cool.
you call them gunfighters, although I always call them cowboys. I guess is that not the appropriate term?
Gunfighters, cowboys,
Either
yeah.
or.
What either or.
Either or.
I think it's just because we have cowboys as a specific faction in the game.
Right. That's one of right.
Probably
Yes.
that's why we chose it. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if it's all right with you, Stuart, we'll talk about the Kickstarter itself. I'll get the webpage up. We'll have a look. You can tell us some of the thinking behind it and so forth and where we are. I mean, it's definitely the case that Dead Man's Hand just seems to be going from strength to strength. It's been around for a few years now. I got some metal bandidos a few years back, but I have a slight ulcer that tells me there might be some plastic ones coming at some point, but I don't know how old I'd have to be.
Well, I think it was a long time. It was quite a long time ago now, because it was around 2010, I think, that we were first talking about it and started play testing it. And we did a lot of research as well. The research was probably the most vital part. And that was just, we watched a lot of movies. We watched a lot of movies and quite a few TV series as well. And we just wanted to get that sort of feel from it. You know,
vibes.
And I don't know if you've ever seen, whenever I'm talking about the kind of feel that we wanted to get for Dead Man's Hand, I always talk about the Kevin Costner film. God, I've forgotten
Kevin
the name.
Costner plays Kevin Costner in another boring movie. Was that what
No, the
Robin Hood?
No.
Dances with Wolves.
No, it's not Dances with Wolves. It's going to come back to me. It's going to come back to me any moment. But there's the gunfight at the end of that film, and it's the best gunfight that you could ever see in a Western. And if you haven't seen it, and if I remember the name of the film,
right?
So embarrassed now.
Tombstone. Tombstone. Someone has suggested.
No, it's not.
No, that's Clint Eastwood, isn't it?
No. Val Kilmer and.
No, didn't Clint Eastwood direct it?
Tombstone.
Yeah. Or am I just making that up?
No. Come on, somebody in the comments has got to be able to help. Kevin Costner Westerns, everybody.
It's worth a Google.
It's worth a Google. Open Range. Oh God, I didn't even need to Google. It just came to me just before it flashed up. Open Range.
Open Range.
Yeah. Okay. Open Range has got about. It's the best gunfight scene in any Western.
I shall have to check that out.
And it's that kind of scene where it's to and fro. I mean, it's very traditional Western fare, and it's guys getting up really close, just a few meters, almost touching distance away, and shooting the hell out of each other. Filling each other,
popping up from behind a barrel, firing a couple of times,
and then maybe sneaking off and hiding while they're bleeding out a bit, and then coming back for some more.
People with a rifle falling off the roof.
Oh, I think there are a couple of riflemen falling off the roof.
Excellent, because stuntmen can do falls, can't they? That's one of the things.
Yeah. Shotguns fired through the wooden walls at people, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, brilliant!
I just love it, and that's just the kind of fun action. If you can have that in a gaming experience, because I'm both sorts of gamers. I like the fun. I think most people will call it beer and pretzels type gaming. But then I like the really in-depth cerebral wargaming as well.
Right.
So I'll flip from one. I like the kind of wargaming where you're playing it over a weekend perhaps, and you're planning moves and.
Right. 15 mil Napoleonics in somebody's shed that takes 6 months.
Yeah, that sort of thing. But then on the other side, I love this much looser form of wargaming.
With cards and loads of stuff from board games coming into war games. I
absolutely.
like my games gamey.
Yeah.
the thing I dislike the most in games, I said it on the channel a lot, is things like list building, and it's anything that leverages advantage in the hand of the experienced player.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what that stuff does. It's like, oh, Tigers are brilliant. Saying, oh, yeah, but they're actually overcosted in this game.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So, no, that's like, it hands advantage to experience. And if you want a game, you've got to find mechanics to keep the loser in the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To the end of the game, not to give up in turn 3 because you've run out of time and he's getting hammered.
Yeah, and that's an oft-used board game mechanic, that sort of concept of keeping everybody in the game. And that's why, you know, things like Ticket to Ride are such good board games, and why games like Monopoly are such bad games.
Yes, player elimination is a terrible board game mechanic.
Yeah,
we know that.
Yeah. And you like another thing I like about wargaming, and is building choice into it. Always making decisions.
Yes,
I like
player agency.
Yeah.
And skirmish games are good for that, but especially when you alternate between who's going next, because each new action is a unique choice.
Yeah,
that was not necessarily going to be that situation when you got that model. You can't plan it. Yeah, I like that a lot. And you got that in Dead Man's Hand because you got your order activation sequences run from the cards, right?
Yeah. And then there's the element of the poker craft and playing your from your hand as well, and knowing the right time to play those cards, and you know, maybe which cards to keep back, to hold back in reserve, which cards to use in special occasions. And then maybe has your opponent got the card that can nullify that one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're so fun. As long as they're not too common.
Yes.
If there's a lot of card cancelling, it gets quite frustrating. But a little bit. That moment when you look back at your hand when something's just been done to you, and you think, can I counter that? And you go, oh, I can.
Yes.
Even if you can't, you still check your cards just in case.
Yes.
Can't you? Keep doing that. And you definitely like relish that moment.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna wreck all of your plans in one play.
Now, I don't remember, and I could be wrong, but in your game, if I'm drawing my hand of cards and I get aces and eights, I've literally got the dead man's hand. There's no rule for that.
No, come on, how rare would that be?
But it's literally, is it aces and eights or is it queens and I think it's aces.
It's actually literally impossible to get 2 aces from the dead man's hand deck.
Oh, because you've only got 1 suit.
Because you only have your 1 suit of your Jack, Queen, King, Ace.
Yeah.
Need to get going about that.
The different suits of the different factions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you ever rewrite the rules, I reckon you need to somehow shoehorn it in there. That's when you need your D1000 table because it's an earthquake or something. So Dead Man's Hand, you got this game. The game's great. We played a series. What do you call it? You play a batch of 3 games. The standard format is you say 3 scenes, 3 scenes. And the first one is usually very introductory with a couple of models, and the other 2 are nearer to fuller games with a little bit of legacy between them. But it seems common enough for someone to win the first, lose the second, win the third. That's fairly common. And what you call that just an act, but you're expected to kind of play that in one sitting, really. You play the 3.
Yeah, exactly that. It's like natural tea breaks.
Yeah. Go and have a fag. You've warmed up now on the first one. A couple of serious games.
Yeah.
And you've stuck with that because I hadn't realized is just how many supplements there's been for Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah, there were 3.
And they're quite different settings. You got like an undead type one, and
and they were kind of artificial. They weren't really. They were just themed. They were just. The last one, the Curse of Dead Man's Hand, that was the themed obviously themed. Then the one before that was Australia.
Right.
But then we just said, oh, do you know what? There comes a time, doesn't there? There comes a time when something's been running for so long, and you've got this game that you've played for 10, well, we'll have played it for 13 years, but loads of other people have played it for 10 years. You've had lots of interactions with people. There's been feedback. Some of it some of it's been good. Some of it we've adopted. So when you're making these considerations as a company, there come along a whole load of other factors, and it's kind of like all these factors. The timing was pretty good for us because we were just at the point where we were big enough to be producing our first plastic sets, and our first plastic gunfighter set, which, man, I think it's 3 years ago now.
No way.
Yeah, I know. I said that.
Guys.
I think it's 3 years ago. But when we did that,
Yeah.
there was always a much bigger plan in place when we were first flirting with plastic sets. So we can go back maybe we could probably go back 20 years to talk about plastic set, but it's serious. When we were in the position maybe 5-6 years ago to then do it, we had the bigger plan in place, and the bigger plan was a big box starter set that was really accessible for people. It was really the sort of thing that you could, because not many other companies, loads of people have done starter sets, but nobody's ever done anywhere the real focus is the terrain.
No, well, Warhammer did it with Kill Team, and I think it was very successful that first round of it, when it was basically a box of figures, a box of scenery, and a handful of dudes.
Yeah,
that particular box. There's subsequent
and they did it with
had
they did it with one of the Middle Earth ones as well, with the Lake Town one.
Right, and it was just a lot of it was scenery, so you were really transported to the place.
Yeah, and it was as though you could, because the Old West is a different setting, and the Old West is Old West building,
and you don't have that scenery set, and it's not trees and hills and hedges, which is most people's war games table.
Exactly. So you have to have the buildings. And what we offered before is we had our partnership, our really successful and really delightful partnership with Foreground, where we were doing the MDF buildings, and they were great. But I mean, the problem with those MDF buildings is twofold and actually quite obvious. It's A, the weight, and it's B, the production. You just can't produce them fast enough
compared to injection molded plastic.
It's nowhere near. And so we realized that we'd have to do plastic buildings, or we'd have to do card buildings. And we looked at we did concepts of doing the card buildings, but we just thought, well, what would we want to do? Would we want cardboard buildings in there, or would we want plastic ones? And okay, and that changed the whole thing, really, because then we were entering this plastic market. And remember, when we were thinking of doing when we were actually in the process of doing the first plastic box set, we were already planning the big starter box and the plastic buildings. So we'd taken that path at that point. So actually, the advent of our first plastic set was the advent of the whole project, and it was a massive, huge project from the start. And it was really the first plastic gunfighters set was the first actual physical hint, evidence that we were going to do this plastic box set that we eventually did.
Sold so well, you
last year. This year. It was this year, my God, that we released this year. Yeah, so it was a big the
new box was definitely this year. Yeah, the new
box. That was it's been one of those years. So that the release of that box set that started more than 3 years ago, You know, and that's in actual money being shelled out and things getting done because the buildings were designed. We started the design of the buildings at the same time as the gunfighters. So it's been a really big project, an expensive project. I think it was one we were always really confident about, and that's why we were able to back it, because you know, getting those buildings designed that's a lot of investment. It's a huge amount of investment,
and they've been designed with modularity from the ground up, right?
Yeah,
that's one of the other good things about you doing it in a relatively compressed time frame. Is that when I saw the new small buildings, like, all of these pieces fit with the other one, so I can mix the roofs up. So with 3 different building types, I think you've got now, the 2-story and 2 single-story ones, but all the roofs are interchangeable and so forth. So I can make a town where no 2 buildings are quite identical.
Yeah, and we ain't finished yet.
Right.
We ain't finished.
Are you taking forward my idea of the jewel kit? It's the church or the brothel. It's an either or build.
Wow.
No,
saints and sinners. I think you should do it.
The next one's got to be a sheriff's.
Oh, you got to have with the bars over the window and stuff. Of course.
It's going to remove
and you have the internal partition so you can have the cells. Are you going to be shaving up doormats to provide us with straw for the floor? Dog clippers and a doormat, I reckon, would do the job on that. All right. So that was you did the boys, then you did the girls, then you did the first of the buildings and the wagon, the iconic covered wagon from the period. So now what we're going on to on the Kickstarter,
You got the
on the Kickstarter, we are now looking at share the page. Has that worked?
Yeah, this was always going to be pretty obvious that this was going to come along, the mounted versions, because we hadn't done any mounted figures up to now. And so,
not even in metal.
Not even in metal.
It's even the cavalry are on foot, aren't they? I'm thinking about the figures,
Not a single one, but that's because 6 years ago we knew we were doing these.
Right.
And yeah, do you know what? 6 years is a long time, and maybe you could say, oh, you should have released them. But then we were getting into, you'd get into a big, I think you'd get into a big mess, because you'd have to release loads of them. And we'd have ended up having to take several years to release loads of metal ones to then make them redundant, maybe for everybody to get cross with us, because we just released new plastic ones. Doesn't mean we won't release metal ones. We will. We're going to be doing some of the load of the legends in metal, and we'll do some other stuff in metal as well.
So,
but this show, I think this kind of clearly shows the kind of trajectory we're going in.
Yeah. So I love the house style on the art. That's as a style, but all the Dead Man's Hand stuff have got these really vivid, almost like comic strip colors.
Yeah.
They've not got all the like shonky bits about it being a comic strip from days of yore, but it's got that feel to it. Always very dynamic. Usually, is it the case here that the pictures, the painted guys on this picture, you can make them as models from the kit?
I'm sure I haven't got a clue.
Right. Okay.
You can certainly the feel is there, so you can make a guy swinging a lasso. Certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do not. I could not attest to the accuracy of all of the components therein to replicate.
Okay. Cool. So then we got some blah 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 blah. There's a Kickstarter. You get Levan. You get this guy. Is he going to be in metal? Is he?
Yes, with plastic horse.
Metal with all early bird pledges. There you go. That's the Kickstarter stuff. You got a video to watch there. So here they are in all their glory. Beautiful. I like the bases as well. Are they your own bases, or are they like Renedra ovals? I'm just wondering about the size.
No, they're ours. We had them specially done. for this box set. So this will be the oval base that you get with all of our mounted box sets from now on.
Right. All of our mounted box sets from now on. Interesting statement there. Right. So this was the best bit for me, is these parts are going to be interchangeable with the existing gunfighters.
Yeah. The idea is you make your
Same
guys on foot and mounted, and that's the first thing you end up doing. It's the first thing I did when I got my paws on the sprue.
I'm gonna saddle up, boys.
I was just like, well, I'm just going to make the same one on foot. So I got one frame of each set, and I was making their identical twin on
which is brilliant. I mean, people are absolutely going to want to do that. And of course, I know Wooly, who's a bit ill, so he was hoping to join us tonight, and he's always been a Kickstarter pledger of Dead Man's Hand. This was the thing he was most excited about. Yeah, because they do play campaigns. They've done a bit of that. They've played a few different ones in their little gaming group in Southampton. I should probably take a moment, because I don't know if you know Bob from Musket Ball, Stuart.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the exact situation, but I think
I know how ill he's been.
I think he's in, like, not expected to come back ill, and that was the weekend.
Yeah, there was. I did last time I heard it was that.
Apparently, he's in a really bad way. And
making it through the year might be a challenge.
Yeah. So, for any of you that have known Bob, he's been in the hobby for a lot of years down Southampton way. And because I went there to play on your original demo board, this game.
Yes, I think I met Bob in 1996.
Right.
I think it was 1996. Maybe 95. I met him at Games Workshop Newport.
Right.
I just joined Games Workshop. 95, maybe.
When you were still fresh and callow youth, Stuart, working in Games Workshop.
Yeah. I joined as a manager.
Right.
And it was my first managers meeting. And I met Bob there.
Right.
A load of other guys as well.
Right.
But Bob and I stayed in the same retail region then for the next few years before I went off and did something else.
So you kept bumping into him.
Yeah.
And
he's a great guy. And
he's a lovely man. We've done an interview with him when we were down at the shop, somewhere in the back catalogue. There's a lovely man, been in the hobby, knows everyone. He's been around for such a long time. Right. So that's that. So that's what they're made up like. But of course, what everybody wants to see is the sprue. So
yes,
there's a beautiful sprue here. Tell us what I'm looking at, Stuart, and why I should be so fizzy about it.
It's the riders,
which is evident.
It's the riders, and they've got a lasso.
Sold. Yep, sold.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's about it.
That's about it. It's got some bits on it. It's got extra arms. You can swap. You could have a guy on foot with a lasso now, or with the rifle.
So these
you can have him on foot now.
Like I said before, we had mentioned earlier. So these are fully interchangeable with the existing set of gunfighters, but they're not duplicated arms. That's the really important thing, right?
No, I don't think so. There are some duplicated bits.
Right. But fundamentally, this is going to give you more options for you.
Oh, you get loads more options. Yeah, because this was designed for people riding horses. So we made sure you'll find that a lot of the left arms, for example, are in that sort of pose where you'd be expecting them to hold the reins if they've got their right arm with a firearm.
Yeah. Yes, of course. So that's that, and this is just the same sprue from the back, is it? So we can look at their bums.
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice.
There's not a chicken on this one, and we'll sort that sort of thing out maybe for the next set.
We'll sort that out, will you?
Yeah.
No chicken.
No
Right.
chicken. Uh-uh.
And then the horses.
I love the horse frame.
3, 4, and these are 5 different poses of horses.
Yeah, some of them are interchangeable as well.
Or the neck and head with the body.
Yeah, I think almost all of them you can swap the halves round. I mean, they're put on the frame so that each half is opposite the correct half. But I've tried them. You can swap loads of them around. I think I found one combination that didn't work.
Right.
But I love that we put the extra bits on, just saddlebags and canteen.
I could see me nicking some of them as stowage for some of my tanks, actually.
Yeah.
Some of the bedrolls and things.
Yeah.
Because it's just 28 mil bedroll, right?
Yeah.
Very nice.
And then of course, because of course you've got the rifle in its sheath on your rider frame as well. You got a couple of those.
Right. Shall I put you on the big screen if you got actual physical ones?
Yeah.
You can show them, Stuart. Hold them up to the dodgy light and
so you've got these. There's a sheathed rifle here.
Right.
Can I get it? Oh, this in no medium is this going to work very well.
No.
But that's a sheathed rifle. There's 2 on the frame. Yes, so you can have 3 on the frame. Oh, that's so generous.
Yeah. And the advantage of a sheathed rifle is it might be a sheathed shotgun, it might be a sheathed repeater.
Yeah.
It's like a pistol holster, isn't it? It could be a lot of different things. So especially if you've got a campaign and you don't want to rebuild the model.
Yeah.
So presumably these are going to be packaged in a box of 5 normally, are they? In that traditional wargaming cavalry count as 2 figures.
No, a box of 10.
They're going to come as a box of 10.
Yeah.
And that is the details of that on the. Let's go back to the Kickstarter.
Yeah, so that's gonna have a price of. We're going to sell them at £25 for 10.
£25 for 10 is very competitive. Very good.
I think it's pretty good because it had to mirror the foot set, because the foot set you get 10 fellows in it.
Yeah.
So the horsey set you got to have 10 fellows.
And we're saying fellows, but we'll get to that in a minute. So there's some stretch goals here, and these stretch goals, these are unique characters from your story, or
well, some of them. It's a mix, and these are all metal foot figures at the moment. Well, some of them aren't,
right?
But they were originally metal foot figures, and we thought, well, for this, let's get loads of these mounted as well.
Right,
it would just be cool.
And they're presumably your classic 2-piece metal cavalry. Your horse and rider are separate.
Yeah, it's a plastic horse.
Oh, it's a plastic horse, right?
Yeah.
It's the same horse.
Yeah,
from the horse brew.
Yeah,
nice. Some more to come, and then I think Texas Rangers, is that a whole squad?
Yeah,
but that'll be metal though, presumably.
Yeah, on plastic horses.
On plastic. Right, I'm with you. On plastic horses, right. Add-ons, these are interesting. Yeah, more stretch goals. Now, I thought I'd read something somewhere that said this is just kind of step 1, but if you raise enough money...
Right, scroll down a couple.
You're going to do the ladies too.
We're going to accelerate them.
Yeah.
Just in our current... I think in our current projection... We're looking at, I think it's July or August release for these, but we can bring it forward to March if we raise a little more funds.
Yeah,
and most of the work's done on them.
Oh, the design work.
Yeah, because we did all the concept stuff at the same time as we were considering the men, and then we got the men, all that work done, and then started on the ladies as well immediately afterwards. And then we've even gone on to 2 other sets. So we're actually in the planning. Well, in the production stage, we've got another 2 sets that have started production. The production.
You think going forwards, when you do new things, you'll do foot and mounted as a single release.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So if you did the 5th Cavalry or whatever, you would.
If it was, for
get their
example,
horses.
if we had US cavalry foot and mounted already in progression, yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's the way we do it. And because we can utilize the horses for a couple of other sets, which makes them really useful. I mean, it does kind of increase our costs because we now commit to doing 2 sets, and it's actually it's a lot more cost from our side. But it's what we want to do anyway. I mean, why wouldn't you want banditos on foot and mounted? Of course you would.
Yeah, I was trying not to say banditos because I think you might have hinted to me in the past off screen that they weren't necessarily that far down the line.
Well, I mean, we've got an active list of about a dozen more sets that we want to do.
Right.
Your buildings and figures, and most of them are figures.
Yeah.
But it's really fun because we're now in the position where we can take a list like that and actually start producing stuff. And we've now hit a milestone this year with the release of this set this year. This is our 10th plastic set.
Is it? Oh, including the buildings.
Including the buildings. All the plastic stuff that we've done. It's our 10th plastic offering.
Yeah.
So that's a good sort of a good base, and we'll go on, and in next year we'll have a chunk more, a few more to add to that, and the year after a few more, and quite soon you'll be able to build. I mean, it's going to be really soon. Actually, you'll be able to build that whole sort of Old West town and all the kind of characters you'd want in the Old West.
When's the Kickstarter going up for the fort?
Yeah.
What they call the log forts that she wore a yellow ribbon and all that. There's always a fort that's smoking, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's where we're going, and I can see. It's not looking.
You can usually pick them up in Pound World or the Works, can't you?
Right. Okay. All right. It's just really, really pleased to see how well Dead Man's Hand is doing, and presumably the range of figures. I mean, there are several other cowboy games now, but I'm guessing they're all using your stuff, right? But Dead Man's Hand is one of the early ones that really kind of caught hold of that interest in it. I think it's because it's really different from other wargaming.
Yeah. Well, I think we've probably inspired a number of other companies to investigate this genre of wargaming because it seemed there are quite a lot of others.
And a lot of us grew up on cowboys and Indian movies. A lot of wargamers are 50-year-old men. They do the survey every year, and it says, "Yep, same guys."
Yeah,
but just a year older now.
But then there's a slightly younger generation, because there was all the cowboy movies through the night. That's why it started in the 90s, didn't it? But the 90s is so long ago now.
With Costner and so forth.
Yeah, that carried on to the 2000s, and we had a couple of great series like Deadwood and Hell on Wheels,
and the one with not Bergerac, Lovejoy in.
Yeah, Deadwood, and there were others as well. Godless is another one. So there've been a few quite high-profile Western TV series, and some younger people must have been watching them, and of course recently you've had.
I think that Django, which is very much in that setting, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you just had 1883, which was phenomenal. I loved it. I watched it 3 times. Really?
I'll add that to consider list.
Yeah, that's really it. It's got a lot of stuff on, because it's all about the Oregon Trail and settlers moving up the Oregon Trail and moving a cattle herd with them.
Well, it's interestingly ambiguous, the period, isn't it? It seems to broadly settle in the aftermath of the Civil War.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily stay there, all of those movies, because I think the Oregon Trail isn't quite then. That's a bit later.
Well, but it's actually quite a sizable chunk of history, though, isn't it? Because well, the Oregon Trail, I think 1860s, isn't it? Starts that sort
Is
of
it?
migration. Because well, the TV series is set at 1883.
Yeah.
So that kind of roughly correlates with, well, that exactly correlates with the end of the Civil War and well, and that whole migration out west as well, and the amount of people who were moving out west. And it is actually, because I've read quite a lot about the period, not as part of. I mean, my research for this was mainly movies, I have to admit.
Right. Because you're trying to make a game. Right?
Yeah, and a movie,
history.
a sort of movie western feel game. But I've read quite a bit as well, and it's a really fascinating period. So it hope maybe other people will read about it as well.
Yeah, it is
fascinating
interesting.
social history, and really, and it's really, it gives you when you read about it, it gives you a real insight into the United States as a country and probably where it's come from and how it emerged. And because maybe you understand that a little more.
Chronologically, when you compare the Midwest, the Oregon Trail, the Deadwood and all that, you're talking about the 1870s and 1880s.
Yeah,
that's high Victorian England.
Yeah,
that's how different our world is.
Yeah.
We've got a problem with gin palaces and an urban poor that is totally destitute.
Yeah,
and they're out trailblazing and founding a new life that's very remote. We're like really cramped. They're like really separate.
Yeah, it's an amazing juxtaposition, and you can it's quite easy to understand how that attracted so many people.
Yeah, you want to get away from the urban squalor and the misery of all this. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean it's not a tough life.
No, yeah, it probably
in the river and all that.
See, it probably felt like in those sort of Victorian Europe, probably felt like you were just not free. I mean, we didn't have free societies in Europe then, anyway.
No, nothing like
but the number of masters you had and people who would, most people lived in terrible poverty.
Yeah.
So, why wouldn't you get
out and save a passage in the bilge to America?
And isn't it? And it's no wonder actually how that country emerged as a superpower in quite a short period, a relatively short period of time. Because if you just consider the caliber of people that survived getting out of Europe, that survived getting over there and building a completely new life, often from nothing, in quite harsh circumstances.
Yeah. But also the resentment of government and authority and taxes. Like my grandfather came out here and turned this desert into the money we have.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be allowed to take any of it. I can see that kind of psychology. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yes. Well, that's the Midwest in the 1860s and 70s and 80s. But let's talk a little bit about the rest of Great Escape Games for the last few minutes, if I may, because you actually have a vast range of games. And before Dead Man's Hand really kind of ballooned, you have, I don't know whether it's kind of the right term, but you almost have like stables of games. So the Dead Man's Hand, you have like a Prohibition era game, which plays quite similar. You have a series of more modern games, your First World War, World War II, and kind of Warsaw Pact 1970s game. They are, although they're not identical, they are very much from they're a family. If you know how to play one, you can pick up the other very easily.
I think because there's the sort of Dead Man's Hand and Chicago Way are cousins in the same way that Iron Cross 1914 and 7 Days to the River Rhine are cousins. They're not related to Dead Man's Hand and Chicago Way in any way.
Yeah,
but they certainly sort of have a core at their heart.
Yeah.
The others. So it's interesting because you got 1914, which is obviously World War One, Iron Cross World War Two, and then the modern, the modern set, 7 Days to the River Rhine. You can, there are some good core mechanics that you can use in that sort of maneuverable warfare, that sort of category of maneuverable warfare. And 1914 is probably the most distant cousin of the other two. The other two are maybe actually brothers, and 1914 is the cousin of those brothers, because that's slightly different. But especially when you compare Iron Cross and 7 Days to the River Rhine, they do very well because they just handle. They do a good job of handling, the two main arms in that sort of battalion level fighting. You know how your arms, how your armor and your infantry work together.
And the interaction between firepower and armor and all those kind of things. Yeah. When he works it out for one, it's basically I mean, sort of to compare it to Flames of War is another system that I think where their Team Yankee Flames of War are very similar. What you just notice is if you play Flames of War and then you play Team Yankee, the thing you notice is how much greater the numbers are. But it's still running off the same system, which is that the firepower of this vehicle is way more than anything you would have seen in World War II. But the armor of the thing it might be shooting at is also way better. So you're just a lot worse off as an armored car in 1970 than you were in 1939. Because what's shooting at you is definitely going right through. And what about other games? I know you have other games. I'm less familiar with those. So what else have you got in Great Escape apart from those two groups?
Well, we've actually our first one was Rules of Engagement, which is I guess the same sort of level as Bolt Action. It's a platoon level infantry, maybe with one vehicle, and we focus. We're actually because it's a really good rule set. I would change lots of what we did with it. I would like to make it, because we moved to a much more fluid way of thinking about gaming and thinking about how games work, we could bring some of that fluidity back to Rules of Engagement, which has some really, really phenomenal core. The way that morale works is so good. And when you combine it with the sort of warfare that we're looking at, which a lot of the time, this level of warfare is attacker defender type. I mean, when I'm thinking about World War II gaming, I don't like this sort of random encounter idea.
But it just doesn't happen.
Is
the top answer to that. And but that's an interesting thing about gaming, because if you look at, well, you mentioned Bolt Action, so there we go. So what is the most successful World War II war game out there? It's Bolt Action, and it's probably the gamiest version of a World War II set of rules you could get. You know? I would say Bolt Action is a World War II styled skirmish game. I don't and I don't mean that critically, because I really enjoy it, but I don't think that what you're doing in that game is particularly indicative of how World War II operated, because in particular, it's invariably an attack defense situation. The meet and engagement of a platoon is just nonsense. It's like, we just wandering about in the countryside. What? No, we don't do that. Why would we be doing that?
But then again, here must be the truth. This must be truthful. Just like people generally like, gamers generally like plastic. They also like list building.
Yeah, they do. Even though I don't, and I can't change the world, can I? People do like list building. They like tweaking. They're like squeezing an extra point out here and there. So I don't like things like, for an extra 3 points, I could put a submachine gun on the sergeant. I'm like, I don't want to care about that level of detail. I want to care about whether they've got Panzerschrecks or not. And that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
That really changes their capability. But you know, have I got a 7-man squad or an 8-man squad? All of that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't.
It's where people optimize it.
Yes.
And they figure out that, I don't know, there's some funny thing people do with Japanese unarmed troops.
The Japanese naked dude with a spear. Yeah, because
there's something people.
It's
An
because
optimal way of doing them.
it's because so this is when a point system isn't properly reflective of their capabilities on the table, right? So this a unit which is historically very suboptimal ends up being disproportionately effective.
Yeah,
the big one in Bolt Action previous edition, we're not playing much this one. That was multi-launchers, flamethrowers, and the cheapest possible body that you could find. The cheapest being a naked guy with a spear. Not that any Japanese ever fought like that.
Yeah.
They did issue spears on Honshu to like, you know, community leaders. And like, if it comes to it, mate, you're gonna have to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it never came to that.
And it probably happened occasionally. Some shirtless with a spear, shirtless man with charging out with a spear possibly happens sometimes. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
I mean, maybe like some old man just like, yeah, maybe on Okinawa that might have happened here and there. I guess for whole units, but that's the problem. As soon as you create a point system, you create a bizarre meta. So when I get upset with war games, it's when they claim to be simulations, which I'm thinking, no way. Unless we're going to play in 2 different rooms, it's not a simulation. I got far too much information for this to be a simulation. Yeah. And I've forgotten what I was going to say the other thing was, even though it's right there on the tip of my tongue. So there you go.
They claim it's a simulation when you can't have a simulation. Because the primary thing is it's got to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that the games that focus on list building, because I don't play any of them anymore. I've been there, I've done that, but I don't play any of them anymore.
Well, you work for Games Workshop, of course. They're the kind of historically the kings of list building.
Yeah, yeah. I've got much more story-like motivation.
To
gaming.
But it was definitely GW that brought in the like, oh, you could give that sergeant a flamer pistol for another 2 points.
Yeah,
that's where all that came. I mean, WRG had list building.
Yeah,
you know, you bought a pack of figures from Essex or whoever, and it was 36 guys coming in that unit, right? And they're 18 points a model. And that's what that is.
Yeah,
and that's how that's gonna be. So you could tinker it a little bit, but you didn't have that kind of granularity. So you got this 28mm skirmish game. You've got what did you say it was called?
Rules of Engagement.
Rules of Engagement. That's your kind of platoon to company level game.
Yeah, we'll do. We're going to do a second edition. We're going to do a second edition of it. Probably.
We're going to do a second edition. Okay.
2026, maybe.
Okay, that's interesting because you have a pretty. If you're into your World War II skirmish and you're into more obscure as opposed to mainstream forces, the other thing that Great Escape Games have been doing, which we haven't covered in a lot of detail, is a lot of those Axis miners and other nations. I mean, was it the last thing you did was Greek mountain troops with donkeys and stuff?
Well, I think actually that was the last big release. I think actually the last thing we did was Romanian cavalry.
Romanian cavalry, right?
But that brings me to one thing I said earlier about not having time to release stuff. So we've got Romanian winter cavalry done. I mean, it's only a couple of packs. We've got a load of Hungarian cavalry packs done.
Right.
I think there are about 6 new packs of Hungarian cavalry that have been done for years. We haven't released those.
Right, because you just haven't even been able to produce them and get the marketing done. And
well, yeah, and get. I mean, it's a relatively small team here. I'm better at taking time off now than I have been in the past, and I'm sticking to it.
You got a 10-year itch or whatever.
20-year agency.
20 years. 20 years.
You can. I decided to change my lifestyle so that I didn't work on weekends.
Mm.
I already work 12 weekends a year, so
Because
I don't
of shows. Yeah, because most of the shows I go to, I only go to the pretty big ones that I can get to. But
we
you're
go
always
to
there, and it's
we
usually
go
you.
to we go to 12. I think it's 12 or 13 shows.
And if you're going from Cardiff, most of them are in quite a ways northeast of you. Aren't they?
They're all miles away.
You go to Newark is what I can never understand why there are so many shows in Newark.
3 times.
Yeah,
3 times Newark.
and it's not near anybody.
And they're all excellent.
So I hear. I've never been to one of the Newark shows because it's like this is quite an awkward place to get to.
Yeah.
How's it? I think it's because the War Games Illustrated guy was involved there, wasn't he? I think that's where that kind of momentum came from.
Sure. It was always a because we've been going for nearly 20 years. And it used to be its previous location was Kelham Hall in Newark, which is a great building, terrible location for a war game show. And since it moved to this new location, it's
still in Newark.
It did things that sometimes happen. And this sometimes happens to businesses. I've experienced this actually, where your business is based in a very small area. You move it to the bigger area, and your turnover expands to that area.
Oh, really?
And that's what happened to the Newark show, to Partisan, the 2 Partisan shows. That's what seemed to happen to them. They were always really good in Kelham Hall, and we'd take, people would come and spend loads of money. There'd be loads of people would attend. But when it moved, it went up a notch.
Right.
And actually, the last 2 years of the wargaming shows, they've been really well attended. The games have been great. The traders have supported all of the shows, and the public have supported by spending their money. And the shows have been extraordinary. They've been really, really quite a pleasure to attend.
Yeah.
I
a
don't
lot of people seem to go. I hear a lot about. I just always look at the journey time and think,
oh yeah, I mean, I go for work, and I kind of moan about going. But it's good to. It's really good, to talk to people, and I just wish I missed the one in Antwerp. I think I would like to go to the one in Antwerp again, and I think we'll end up going to one in the States next year, maybe.
Really? Because they do huge shows out there. You mean a big one like Adepticon or something?
Yeah, Gen Con.
With I think Dead Man's Hand in Chicago away might go on well at Gen Con.
Yeah, and we're going to initially talk to one of our partners out there about the logistics of things and how we do it. But I want to go. My brother lives nearby, so it's very easy for me.
Right. Because definitely I've seen, as far as I've seen like YouTubers, there's as much interest in Dead Man's Hand over there as there is here. Seems presumably it sells well in the States.
Oh yeah, we ship so much to the States. It's great.
Right. So we're just about at time. So I'm just going to check next significant show that's coming up that I know about is Farnborough. Are you going to be there, Stuart? If anyone wants to say hi,
Farnborough. We are there.
You're going to be at Farnborough, and will people be able to see the sprue in the flesh, as it were? I know you won't be selling it there.
Yes, they'll be able to see it in the flesh. We'll have painted
up figures
examples there as well.
Yeah, and of course all the buildings. That town set that you did was really good.
Yeah.
As a vendor, knowing there's other buildings come out, I'm nervous that I've got to sell all of them because soon there's going to be another big box come out, and you need a town. You definitely need one and a half of those sets to get going.
Yeah.
Is there going to be once you've had the lady gunfighters? Do you think there'll be a big play set for someone who wants to go all in?
Yeah,
buildings, horses, riders, moo cows, everything in plastic.
Yep.
Magnificent.
Yep.
Really looking
Definitely.
forward to it.
Definitely.
No one else will care, but I do. 1914. I had a game with Callum, Brush and Quill last Thursday. We used some black powder rules that Friends of General Haig had used in a demo game once as a starting point with Stuart's beautiful 1914 miniatures. Is there anything for anyone that's interested they're likely to see from 1914 over the next sort of 6 months?
Well, the extraordinarily long delayed Russians and Austrians.
Yeah, they're gonna hit.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah,
you
we'll
want to fight Tannenberg, where the Russians get beaten about 20 times smaller force.
It's a couple of things to do because all the miniatures are done.
Mhm.
They're all ready to go.
Right.
Not all of the rules are done because not all the we've done a little bit of play testing. We need to do a little bit more play testing. It's because we wanted to do the same nation related
Bundles.
cards. You know, because you get a few nation specific cards in 1914. We wanted to do them for Russians, Austrians, Serbs, and Germans on the Eastern Front.
Right, because it's a different war. Yeah.
And so we haven't quite done all of that yet, and just the schedule's been really hectic.
But people, figure agnostic. I'm sure you're a huge approver of figure agnostic approach to gaming. You mix and match from all over. I mean, I wouldn't be playing your rules with them. I just want your figures because I think they're lovely.
Yeah, I somewhat agree.
Somewhat, but you like. I did buy a copy of your rules. I did play them. They were all right. I just like the speed of Black Powder. I thought was a really good way of looking at it because it's a very fast-paced game, and I want bigger games.
Yeah,
for that for World War One. For World War One.
We're just gonna do. It's just gonna be a. I think it's just going to be basically a little pack of cards that gets released at the same time, and so we've got a release plan for it, and it's got to include the pack of cards.
But it's got to have the pack of cards.
Yeah, it's got to. That's got to be. You've got to be able to buy the pack of cards when we release Russians and Austrians.
Okay.
Well, all those people that play 1914, they're going to say, "Well, what are the rules?" And I'm going to say, oh, "I don't know yet."
I don't think the rules.
But it's
the pretty figures are the important part of every game, not the rule. I got to paint them before I can play them. You can have months to get the cards ready.
It's one of the two things that's really, really, really haunting me. Number one is the Hungarian cavalry is haunting me to death at the moment because I can't release them until we remold the original set. We're having to remold a load of the original stuff.
The original Hungarians?
The original cavalry, yeah. We can't release a whole load of new cavalry and not have the original core cavalry set available. That'd be crazy.
Right. And it's just the molds have reached the end of their useful life, so you're taking them out of circulation.
Yeah, and so we've had to redo the molds, but other things have been ahead on the list. So we've got another load of factions coming out for Dead Man's Hand, and a load of new legends coming out for Dead Man's Hand, and just on the schedule, they're the priority. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got my fingers crossed for a variety of command packs for 1914 from our British and Germans to mix up the HQs because they're really nice, but I need more than one HQ base.
Once we find somebody to do the Serbian project for 1914, then we'll add in. You'll have to remind me. We'll talk about command packs because we'll get some other stuff done as well. Because the Serbian range is going to be really small.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Stuart, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Really good to see the company going from strength to strength and Dead Man's Hand, such a successful project. Maybe in 5 years' time, you'll have everything you want in plastic for Dead Man's Hand, and you'll be talking about, I don't know, World War II 28mm plastics, perhaps. There's a bit more competition in that market.
Who knows?
But there's so much. No one's going to do plastic Hungarians anytime soon, I'll tell you that much.
No one is.
No one is.
Maybe.
All right. It's been a real pleasure. Johnny B, did you get any hobbying done tonight, mate? You've been beavering away there. You're muted, mate.
Beavering away, yes, indeed I am. Just doing some Roman cavalry for funsies.
For SPQR.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Hopefully we'll get that done at some point. But yeah, what an awesome dude.
Very nice. Very nice. And if you want a testimony to the fact that you don't need a good rule set to have a good game, we love playing SPQR and it's a terrible rule set. But we get a lot of fun out of having characters on the table called Biggest Dickus and Maximus Erectus Longus and so forth.
Yeah.
There is a lot of joy to be had in rolling dice and saying those words. Because deep down, we're just 13-year-old boys who want to draw the penis on the base of every miniature. That is the fact. And on that cheery note, good luck with the Kickstarter. I don't know if he wants to be backing it. I might catch you down at Farnborough. I know Wooly is planning to go. It's a great show for anyone that's not been. A lot of the big vendors go there. And, of course, you can go and see Stuart's lovely painted new Dead Man's Hand stuff in the flesh.
Yay.
Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yep.